Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Inside Boxing Weekly, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in probably the greatest author in the history of boxing books, John Raspani. How you doing, John?
Boy, Mike, I'm sure glad those checks, they make it to your house before we do the show. Yeah, thank you. I'm doing well, thanks. Appreciate it. Love being here.
And make sure you check out John's new book with Jerry Fitch, A Few More Rounds. You can find that on Amazon, correct, John?
That is correct. That is
All
correct.
Right, let's go ahead and let's get to the past weekend. Canelo versus Saunders. Canelo, I think, dominated Saunders from what I saw. I don't think there was ever a doubt who was going to win the fight. I didn't think there was a doubt when we talked about it last week. I just missed because I said 7th round. It ended up being the 8th. What's your takeaway from this? Because to me, I've never been impressed with Saunders. I don't buy that he's been a 2-division champion because he hasn't, because you don't win a title by beating Shifat Yusufu or whoever the hell he beat, Chris Eubank Jr. or whatever the other one. So to me, it is what it is. I think it's what I expected. I don't think Saunders quit. I think Saunders got stopped. So what was your take on the fight?
Well, I was a little more impressed with Billy Joe than you. I mean, been watching the guy since he fought Eubank. He won a split decision. I read online that he dominated Eubank. Not true. He won a split decision. That was like 6 years ago. And then he beat Andy Lee, which was relatively impressive. And then he also beat who am I forgetting? David Lemieux in Canada, which a friend of mine that lived there said it was a masterclass. So I even wrote about it in the article. So I thought he had a slight chance because he was craftier and everything we were talking about. Canelo probably has some problems with movers, but as we said, Canelo is not the same beast that he was when he was fighting Lara and Austin Trout and those guys. So I was like you. I mean, I wrote an article and I said, as I was writing, and the DAZN guys were going crazy that Saunders was winning the fight. One of them
was just one DAZN guy.
Well, I should say that one guy, right?
And it was Chris Mannix. It was the one guy I was closest to thinking that he didn't suck before that fight too.
I just was doing this. I was just waiting. So I said I was just waiting, and then bam.
Yeah.
And
there Carl Froch had him up by 3 points.
Carl Froch, who he wanted to win. Yeah. So we got to give it to Froch. We got to give him credit, right? I mean, he liked Billy, and then Frank Warren always calls Billy Joe Bill, which always cracks me up. It doesn't look like a Bill to me. He doesn't look like a Billy Joe because he acts like he's about 8 sometimes, and that's a whole nother story. You know what I mean? So no, I thought it was Canelo's in his prime right now, I would say, and he's rolling over guys, as you said so well last week, that he doesn't believe he can win. He knows he can win. So he doesn't get concerned. If a guy has a good round, like Billy Joe had a pretty good 5th, he just says, okay, fine, maybe you won a round, but that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going to get you. And that's what he did. And his defense, as we talked, his defense is so much better now. He didn't get enough credit for that. He's just an all-around better fighter now, and there isn't anybody at 168 who can beat him, I don't think.
Well, I think my biggest issue with Saunders is fighting Canelo. I just don't think Saunders has enough power. And if you can't get Canelo's respect, you don't have a chance to beat him. And when we look at this, we talk about where he goes from now. We had Dennis Andre, who made a complete, or Demetrius Andre, I don't even remember his damn first name. That'll tell you why he's boring. But makes an ass out of himself at the press conference. What has Demetrius Andre done to get this fight? I mean, I don't even know that if Andre would beat Saunders. I think he would, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, he was going to fight him, remember, and then it got postponed, got canceled. That would have been interesting to see because I don't know if anybody would have landed because they both like to move around so much. So it probably would have been 12 rounds of tactics and a chess boxing match, which would have bored everybody to tears. Andre hasn't beat anybody of note. I mean, if he really wants to get a shot at and stop talking so much, I mean, that's how it's done, of course, is you keep challenging, blah, blah, blah. But you got to beat somebody significant. If he let him fight Golovkin.
Yeah. Or he could fight Charlo, or he could fight Benavidez. I mean, there's all kind of guys he could fight, and then people would, if he came out and dominated Golovkin, he would get that fight. And to me, I mean, they talk about Caleb Plant, and we talk about what's next. But Caleb Plant, to me, is just a more dedicated version of Billy Joe Saunders. He doesn't punch hard enough to really have a shot in this fight. We just saw Caleb Truex go to distance with him. I love Caleb Truex. He's been on our show before. But Caleb Truex is almost 40 years old. And, I mean, I don't think Caleb Truex is going to hang out for 12 rounds with Canelo.
No, and yeah, Plant is a good fighter. He's a young, hungry dude, and right, he takes care of himself much more than Saunders, so he'll be a little edgier, but he doesn't punch very hard. That's very true, and it's a kind of the same thing. You might even see it as a sequel in a sense that maybe a similar, maybe a little better sequel where there will Plant might do slightly a little better, but Canelo will just stalk him and rock him, and that'll be it, you know. And I just don't see. I mean, I like Caleb Plant. I do. I like him too. His story, I'm sure you're familiar with his story. He's had a lot of tragedies, pulled himself up, and I like that kind of stuff. I like people to do that, and I'm glad he's getting a shot at Canelo. He's going to make the most money he's ever made his career. Good, but I just don't. I don't see it. A lot of people are talking about Benavidez. That's the guy that's going to really give Canelo trouble, and you know, I don't know. Munguia is just so wide open. I don't see him beating Canelo, and Benavidez is bigger, but you know, I just.
Well, I'm just saying this. I'm saying I'd rather see Benavidez or Golovkin than I would Plant or Andrade.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I think the master plan is, since Canelo has mentioned Charlo a few times, I think perhaps Charlo and Canelo will throw hands May 2022 in Vegas. I expect you to go, Mike. I'm planning on going if it happens, so that might be cool if we could all get together for that one. But I think that might be what they're thinking. And then they're talking about fighting the big beast at light heavyweight.
I think that'll happen. I think it'll happen. I think it's probably about a year and a half to 2 years away. But if you want to be an all-time great, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you wrote an article about that for Max Boxing that was a great article.
Thank you.
That's how you get to be great. You take chances like that. You know, like Sugar Ray Robinson doesn't get pointed for losing to Joey Maxim at light heavyweight. Everybody talks about he was winning the fight and just ran out of gas, and that was against the light heavyweight champion of the world. So taking a shot like that, I know everybody now, like Floyd Mayweather, wants to be 50-0 and everything. But in the end, I mean, greatness is when you test yourself against something, especially if it's insurmountable odds. Muhammad Ali is considered great because of what he did later in his career against George Foreman. You know, to me, that is the epitome of Muhammad Ali. We just did a show, me and Christopher Shelton, on the comeback of George Foreman, and we watched the fight with Ali. And Ali, I mean, that was 10 years after his prime started. And 10 years after his prime started, he had maybe his greatest win because people really thought Ali could get hurt in that fight. But Ali showed how great he was. Joe Louis, I mean, to me, Max Schmeling whoops his butt pretty good if you watch that first fight. 2 years later, he destroys Schmeling in the first round. So I think a lot of times the greatest fighters are defined by their losses and how they overcome it. Canelo lost to Floyd, and I think what we saw from that loss was he was better off losing that fight than anything else because that fight showed him the things he had to do to be able to take care of people, to present him something that he has a hard time with. And when we watched Billy Joe Saunders, it was a patient Canelo, which we saw Canelo chase Floyd Mayweather and try to desperately land punches. Canelo just kind of walked him down, banged him to the body, and then got him out of there the first time he got a chance. And I think that is the evolution we've seen over the last 7 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's what we talked about, is that he's evolved. You know, this is a guy started fighting when he was 15 years old, and he's had 60 fights. And nowadays guys don't fight that much, but he learned in the trenches. And then that Mayweather loss, right, that might bother him maybe more than anything else, but he learned more in that fight. Hell, he even adopted some of Mayweather's moves a little bit, the shoulder roll, but he learned a lot about fighting those kind of guys. And he might never be, because he's not the swiftest guy afoot, but he's got such great hands and awareness and intelligence in there that he knows how to fight those guys. And yeah, Billy Joe's more of a pity patter, and we knew that going in. But I think it would have been a better fight too if it had been a few years ago. I think Billy Joe, you just can't abuse yourself, and you know, he's over 200 pounds between fights. I just don't think you can do that. That comes back and bites you. You know, he's walking around at about 220 between fights, right?
And
I can't do that.
I think the thing that really gets back to Canelo, this is from watching George Foreman again. I know they're not the same fighter, but it's just the pressure Canelo seems to exert now. Even when a guy's dancing, he puts so much pressure on that guy that guy's wore out just because he's trying to keep from getting knocked out. It was kind of the same thing with Foreman, where the only guys that really pulled that off were Jimmy Young and Tommy Morrison later on, because he applies so much pressure. You know, the old adage is pressure breaks pipes. That's kind of what Canelo did, I thought, because we're sitting there watching the fight, and I thought Canelo won 2 or 3 rounds early. I thought it was like 5-3 when the fight was stopped, but I never got the feeling that there was a chance Canelo was going to lose the fight, because the overwhelming feeling was it was going to end the way it did, with Canelo hitting him in the face and it being over.
Yeah, you could tell that when Canelo landed, he landed some wicked body shots. Billy Joe Saunders felt him. You could see it. He was like, I don't really want any of this, you know. And I didn't blame him for that. I mean, he obviously knew going in that, even though he said, "Oh, I've got 14 knockouts," blah blah blah, but it's not the same thing, you know. But Canelo, he winds up and fires from San Diego, you know, those shots, and he's fast enough to get away with it. He missed the number, but Billy Joe's always been kind of elusive in some respects. But yeah, no, his pressure fighting, his coolness, you know, and all that. And yeah, that back to that article that I wrote, that caused a lot of reactions. I was discussing whether he's great. A lot of people think he is. A lot of people don't think he is. A lot of people said just what I said in the article, that he's doing this or he's doing that and he's fighting these guys. I don't know if he's ever going to get. And I wasn't doing the all-time great. I was just talking about whether he's great right now.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt he's great right now for the times we live in. How about that?
Well, see, I didn't say that. I said he was in the neighborhood in my article. You remember, he's in the neighborhood, right?
If it's 1980, 85 right now, he's in the neighborhood to me. Today, I mean, if we put together a top 10 pound for pound list, how many of them would even be great fighters?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's a good point, but what I used as examples obviously were greatness, even though it wasn't within now, it was within like 50 years ago or something. So I can't put him there now. If he goes and beats the guys we're talking about, then he'll definitely be up there. So he's working on it. But what I like about him the most is what we said a little while ago, is how he's improved. I mean, he unlike a Billy Joe, whatever, he said it very well, Mike. And I don't know if you heard this. He said, "Why shouldn't I fight someone?" We both love it that he fights so much. That's old school. That's throwback. And he says, "Why not? I'm in the gym all the time." So, you know, this obviously, or playing golf now. I guess he really loves to play golf, which I love. Why not? You know, that's his living. He might as well. And I like that mentality. He's not going to fight once a year. He's not going to be like Gary Russell Jr. and fight every couple of years. He's going to fight 3 or 4 times a year, roughly. I hope this is what he's going to do for the next few years until inevitably he loses. The thing that people seem to forget is that this is all really good for boxing fans. This is good that he's fighting. You can hate him. You can accuse him of doing this. You could say he's fighting pillow punch fighters, whatever you want to say. The point is he's good. He's brought more interest back. 73,000 people. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, and just imagine. I mean, you put him against a Golovkin, you probably get 80 or 90,000 in there.
Yeah.
Eddie Hearn has confirmed that Joshua versus Fury is on. The paperwork's not signed yet, so it's not confirmed. But they're saying it's going to be fought in Saudi Arabia. I don't like the fight in Saudi Arabia, John.
Yeah, I don't either. We've talked about this. It should be in Wembley. You know, you got a couple of English dudes. I mean, they ought to be fighting each other in Wembley. You sell 100,000 tickets in not even 100 seconds. Those tickets would have been. And you know, Eddie Hearn's a smart guy. He knows that. For whatever reason, they don't want to go that route. I hate it too that he's said like what, a half a dozen times now the fight was sealed, and then 2 days later Bob Arum will come out and say the fight is dead. You know, I mean, I don't know what is holding up them signing, because they won't say, but I noticed Eddie Hearn got a little aggravated at a reporter that asked him about it, and he's like, Eddie Hearn's like, well, it's all, what can I tell you? I've been telling you this for weeks. And the guy goes, well, nothing's ever official. And I thought the same thing. Well, it's all good to say it, but until it's all official, then it don't mean nothing. So we're just going to have to accept that it's in Saudi Arabia. I just want him to fight and get it over with because it's been hanging on so long, getting really tired of it.
I just don't want it to be on August 14th.
August 14th.
That's a bad date.
Oh.
Well, no, I met my high school football team that I coached his first game. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's going to be an issue.
Well, he said the 7th or 14th. I'll call Eddie.
We have a Twitter message from @Lufase. I don't know, Lufase. But he says that Eddie Hearn just needs to stall 2 or 3 more days, and the ultimate public deception will be complete. Fury Wilder 3 announced. Joshua's safe and secure. All the blame pointed at Fury. Masterful.
Oh wow, that's a pretty cool theory. I hadn't even thought about that. I don't think so. Eddie Hearn looks like an ass too. If that happens,
I don't think Eddie cares.
Yeah, no, I don't think that flies either. But that's some good thinking there, and that's thinking out of the box. So we got to give him a lot of credit for that, right, Mike?
Well, it's boxing, so there can never be a stupid thought because anything is possible. @BoxingFan says Eddie wonders why nobody believes a word that comes from his mouth. He's been claiming it's a done deal for months, long before it was ever a done deal, and it's still not a done deal. And then @TruthFan says Groundhog Day with Hearn again.
Very good. Very good.
Like people from England are listening to us.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad they are. I mean, that fight has got to be any boxing fan in England or anywhere. I mean, that's the #1 topic of discussion, I would figure. So, I want it to happen because I'm still intrigued. I saw Fury sparring, and he cracks me up because he is obviously, as we know, he's certainly no body beautiful, and he's got more love handles than I've got. I'm 30 years older than him, so it just cracks me up. He's flabby here, he's flabby in the back, and it's like, but he's,
We got a couple comments on YouTube. Steve says, "Are you lying again, Eddie? It's all in your head. You haven't even sent Banker's draft to Aram yet." Dennis responded. This was like 4 or 5 minutes ago. Dennis responded, "Now you have sorted out the mega deal. You're going back to delivering Domino's pizzas."
That referring to Eddie Hearn, or
no? I think he's referring to Steve, who's the one that said the bank draft hadn't even been sent yet. So.
Oh, okay. Well, see, now that tells me that people are also just as frustrated as you and I are about this, Mike. That let's get this done, or stop talking about it, or something.
Skywalker on Twitter says their ring walks are going to take so long that they should just announce the fight will be the next day, August the 15th.
It's true. It's true. The ring walks, some of them are totally ridiculous. We talked about this. Billy Joe Saunders walking out there like he was the king of the country and arrogant as all. Granted, I didn't like some of the guys he did. I will say that totally out front. So I was like, but it didn't surprise me because that's him.
I want to know why we got to listen to 3 national anthems. I don't know why we got to listen to any of them. Why can't they just fight?
Well, there's that too. And you know when they say the fight is next that you still got 45 minutes before they're even going to start throwing hands. So, it's just the way it is.
Because we're going to have to listen to a bunch of stupid-ass DAZN guys say some stupid stuff. And then we've got to have, 4-minute highlight videos of both before they walk out. And before that, we've got to have 3 national anthems. And I'm sorry, but the Mexican national anthem needs to be shortened a little bit for these events.
I don't care. I find the videos more
obnoxious. The bad thing is this. I've heard the national anthem of Mexico so long, I can't speak Spanish, but I can sing along with the freaking song.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a good thing.
I needed that for Spanish class when I was younger. Corey King says, "Hey, what's up?"
Hey, what's up?
What's
hey,
up, Corey? Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
So, and the undercard, we still need Don King back for the undercards.
Don King is another sore subject that.
Yeah, but his undercards were badass, John. You got to give him that.
That's true. That's true. I will give him that because I've complained for years that Aram admitted that nobody cares about the undercard. All they care about is the main fight. See, I don't agree. Never agree with that. You should at least have one good undercard fight.
Especially if you're going to charge $70. And the other thing is this. Yeah, I had imagined if it's Fury and Joshua and you got Top Rank and you got DAZN, this is going to end up being pay-per-view.
Oh, it is. I wouldn't even bet you on that. I can't imagine with all the money they're throwing around. I heard that Fury and Joshua will make like $75 million each.
That's what I heard too. Is that before the pay-per-view?
I think that's before the pay-per-view. Yeah, so they're going to make over $100 million each. And, you know, I don't have a problem with them making all that money. That's fine. It's just, give me something that's entertaining where I don't have to twiddle my thumbs for 3 hours until the main fight starts. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the other question is this: what time of day is it? Because if you want to do big pay-per-view numbers in the U.S., probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon is not the time to do it.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to remember what time the Joshua Ruiz rematch.
It was like 5 o'clock.
It was,
but okay. It wasn't pay-per-view. It was just on the zone.
That's true. So maybe they'll look at that and possibly, but I don't know. I maybe 7 o'clock. What? 6 o'clock.
I think you'd almost have to make the fight like 8 or 9 o'clock to pull that off. And I don't know
Pacific time. East Coast time, Pacific time. I mean, you got all the times.
Yeah, really. Right? If you're doing a fight, you're paying $80. The fight probably should start. The main event should start by 11 o'clock at the latest, which puts you 8 o'clock on the Pacific. And I know all the Brits are going to get mad and say, "Well, there's not an American fighting." But if you want to sell pay-per-view, you know, Americans are dumb enough to pay $80, where usually the British only have to pay like 25, right?
I don't know, but I would be surprised. I mean, usually the pay-per-views start at 6 o'clock out here in California. So if that's the case, 9 o'clock East Coast, and then if it's the main fight's at midnight, say that East Coast, that's 8 o'clock in the morning for the Brits because they're 8 hours ahead of us, right? So
yeah, but then again, 8 o'clock in the morning for the Brits is probably better than 3 o'clock in the morning for the Brits.
Oh, way better. I wouldn't complain.
You can get up at 6:30 and get drunk just like you're going to work and watch the fight and then go back to sleep and have the entire night to yourself after that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I've watched some fights at 5 o'clock in the morning, so you know, 8 o'clock is like that's great. That's great.
I have too, but the 5 o'clock ones I don't even know they're going on half the time, and I have to rewatch it after I wake back up from my nap.
You fall asleep. Yes.
Yeah,
you're old.
I fall asleep a lot. I'm not as old as you, but you're probably in better shape than me because you live in sunny California, so you get plenty of vitamin D.
No, I'm not doing the vitamin D thing. No.
The vitamin D comes from the sun. It's always sunny there, right? I live in Northern California.
Well, I have been going out and playing a little golf again, so that's why I look so nice and tanned right now. Maybe it's the lights, but I have been going out there.
You get ready to take on Steve Risley, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I play 3 or 4 holes and that's it.
Okay, I'm afraid to show this comment because I don't know what it says.
Saunders, no. L box. Oh, I don't know.
Isn't there a translation button anywhere on Restream?
Los Angeles Times, ha 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 ha. Isn't that ha ha? Isn't that ha ha? Slapping.
I have no idea. So we'll just let it go. Thanks for the comment, though.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.
If you could write it in English for us big stupid Americans, we would appreciate it.
Well, you know what? I'm going to ask you something. You said something interesting. We're talking about get back Canelo for a second. You said Andre Ward needs to come out of retirement.
Yeah.
And fight.
I'm trying to see that because I think Andre Ward in his prime was greater than Canelo. And I know that half boxing fans think Andre Ward is the biggest joke ever. But look at who Andre Ward beat. He's legitimate light heavyweight. He can punch. He can box. Andre Ward, for my money, is greater than Canelo. And I don't know what Canelo can do to become greater than Andre Ward. Now, if you go pound for pound, I mean, beating Artur Beterbiev, to me, is how you become an all-time great if you're Canelo. You know, clean up the division, you take down Triple G, take down Benavidez, take down Charlo, Benavidez, Golovkin, then beat Beterbiev, then I think you pretty much solidified it. And no, I don't give 2 shits about Demetrius Andrade. I watched him fight Jack Colquet life and death and take a split decision, so I'm not taking him seriously.
Yeah, you're actually covering up your Andre poster. You just don't want to admit it. You're disappointed that he's like.
I don't think they make Andre posters. I think the only Andre poster is maybe he's got a niece or something that drew a picture of him with a belt when she was in kindergarten and gave it to him. I think that's the Demetrius Andre poster.
Or maybe he owns all the posters because there's only one. So.
Yeah, if there's any.
So yeah, I would love that. I wish Andre Ward was still around because I know most boxing fans know that he would fight him. He would fight Canelo, and Canelo would love to fight him, and that would be a fascinating fight just because Andre was also real smart, as we know, in there, and he always had a plan with Virgil Hunter. So that would have been a chess match, and then he would have picked his spots where he would have fired with Canelo threw that lead right hand that he was so good at. That would have really been an intriguing fight.
I don't know that it is now because Andre Ward did not look like Andre Ward against Kovalev, and that's a few years ago now. So I would still rather see that than Demetrius Andrade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree.
And also Caleb Plant. I would much rather see that than that.
Yeah, that's the next one. And as I said, I'm not upset about it or bugged about it or bummed about it. It's fine because I think Canelo will get to those guys that we're talking about. People are saying he's picking and choosing. Okay, maybe he is, but I think he wants to fight those guys. I can remember when he fought Lara, Oscar De La Hoya, who was handling him back in those days, was having a conniption fit because he did not want him to fight Lara. He did not want him to fight Austin Trout because they were the type of fighters that would give him trouble, and they did. But he said, no, I want to fight these guys. So I gave him credit for that, knowing that it was possible he could lose. Now, some people thought he lost to Lara. Whatever. The point is that he's got the guts, or whatever you want to call it, to try to fight these guys that he knows might not be to his advantage. So I admire that. I think that's the way a fighter is supposed to be. It can't just be lined up like bowling pins and you just knock them down. You have to face all these different type of guys.
Hey, John, look what I just found right behind me. Have you ever seen this book before?
I like that one.
Blood on My Notebook, Dispatches from the Professional Boxing World, or the world of professional boxing. That's John J. Raspani. You can find that on Amazon. A few more rounds, which he did with Jerry Fitz, which we're going to have you guys on here in a month or so, as soon as I read the damn thing. I thought you were going to read it.
I thought you were going to read it last weekend.
I was, but, it's in book form, and I'm so used to reading on my Amazon Kindle now or my phone that I started reading a biography of Bud Grant. So that'll be done now by the weekend. And then I'll read that book. So, because I like Bud Grant. And it was really, the issue was this, John.
Yeah.
I had to take a dump. And it was on my phone. So I didn't have to go find the book.
Got to bring the book in the bathroom with you. I have 2 books in the bathroom with me, so I just reach over and I...
Yeah, but see, my kids are, their kids are like 18 or 20. They get scared whenever they see a book. All right, John, you want to come back next week and we'll preview Devin Haney's fight?
Devin Haney, and of course, don't forget, Mike, next weekend is Taylor and Ramirez Unification Junior Welterweight fight. Very interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I got them mixed up. The Haney fight the week after.
Haney's coming up. Yeah, Haney's fighting Linares the next weekend. Yeah, and this is coming on the 22nd, May 22nd. I want to confuse people. May 22nd, Ramirez, Taylor, Unification. Taylor beat the Rougarou. Ramirez knocked out Hooker. This ought to be – I'm looking forward to this one. This ought to be fun.
Yeah, this is a good fight. This is a fight that should have 73,000 people in a stadium watching it.
Yeah, and it won't. It'll have people will be like, who? But people who know boxing know it.
If they're fighting in Texas, they might have 10 or 15,000.
Yeah, in Texas. Yeah, boxing fans and boxing fans definitely in Texas, and that's good.
Then you're allowed to have a crowd there. So.
Well, yes, we know that.
Florida. You fight in Florida, you get a crowd. So I just hope they fight where there's a crowd because it's a lot better to watch.
It is, no disagreement there. Amazing how different. I mean, even Canelo, it seemed like every time they showed him and he got a roar, he looked up like he had never been cheered before in his whole. And it was like it had been a long time since, and it felt like an eternity since there had been a crowd. And it is so much better with a crowd, no doubt about it.
All right, John, you want to tell everybody where they can follow you, where they can find all your books and all that?
Okay, yeah, check out maxboxing.com. That's where we do our stuff. Hopefully it's good. That's where that Canelo article I wrote is on. And I've got a bunch of stuff from Bill Tibbs, who's an excellent writer from Canada. We try to do a lot of variety of things. And then the 3 books that you can't see behind me, Mike had them, but I couldn't get them in the shot, is Intimate Warfare, Blood in My Notebook, with Dennis is Intimate Warfare, Dennis Taylor, and then Blood is Mine, and then a few more rounds with Jerry. We can't wait to come on your show. Jerry's all excited to come on and talk to you, Mike, so hopefully that happens soon. They're all on Amazon. The reviews have been through the roof. Few More Rounds has 14 reviews, Mike, and it's 5 stars.
All right, so Jerry's excited to come on with me? That usually doesn't happen. Has he seen you before on the show?
Yeah, he's ready to go pretty much. He's trying to come up with dates. And I said, I can't come up with dates with Mike. Mike's got all this stuff going on and everything. I go, well, no. So about a month from now, right?
This show was supposed to be an hour and a half earlier, but we had to do the Old Time Boxing show about George Foreman's career comeback, or second comeback in his career, which you can watch everywhere you can find podcasts. We can't watch it on a podcast. You can watch where the video is, which is on YouTube, thegruelingtruth.com. You can hear it on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, all that good stuff. And make sure you go to Rockfin, sign up for us there, because we will be putting out content there shortly that you can only get there and nowhere else. So until next Thursday at 1 o'clock, when me and John will be back, for John Responding, I'm Mike Goodpastor. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth.